This video is brought to you by HonorFirst.com, a nonprofit organization. I'm Clifford Gill, a retired Border Patrol Assistant Chief and one of its officers. When I research history, I tend to place the greatest weight on official government documents. At the same time, first-hand accounts, including my own, have value when they are clearly identified and offered for thoughtful scrutiny. What follows is my first-hand historical perspective on how the U.S. Border Patrol pipes and drums came into being. It is shared for educational purposes and to help document the development of a tradition within the U.S. Border Patrol. During the late 1990s and around the year 2000, bagpiping began to emerge within the U.S. Border Patrol through multiple parallel efforts rather than a single coordinated program. At the national level, a unit known as the National Bagpipers was formed. That unit consisted of roughly a dozen Border Patrol agents and operated under an approved standard operating procedure. The SOP authorized a distinctive uniform that included a U.S. Border Patrol kilt. Its mission focused on solo performances rather than functioning as a full band. Presented are some of the agents associated with the National Bagpipers. These names represent only part of the unit's overall membership. One lasting contribution from this era was the development of the U.S. Border Patrol tartan spearheaded by Mike Demick. This tartan later was carried forward and became the official tartan of the U.S. Border Patrol pipes and drums. By the early 2000s, multiple Border Patrol sectors had formed local pipe bands or piping elements within their honor guards. These included Laredo, Del Rio, Rio Grande Valley, and El Paso. Each effort reflected local leadership support, available talent, and individual initiative rather than centralized direction. Uniform standards varied widely. The National Bagpipers controlled access to certain uniform items, including the U.S. Border Patrol tartan. As a result, some sector bands adopted alternative tartans based on availability and local preference. For example, the Rio Grande Valley Sector Band was able to obtain and wear the U.S. Border Patrol tartan, while the Laredo Sector pipes and drums wore the Black Watch and later the Stewart Hunting modern tartans during their early years. These differences were typical of a decentralized grassroots effort, but they also highlighted the lack of institutional cohesion. The Laredo Sector Pipe and Drum Band was one of the most active early sector pipe bands and emerged in Laredo around 2000. During its first 2 years, from 2000 to 2002, the Laredo Band received no government funding. 7 members collectively spent approximately $12,000 of their own money on instruments, uniforms, and training, with the majority of the expenses borne by Ian O'Reilly and Terry McDowell. This effort was documented contemporaneously. In May 2001, the INS communique published an article titled, "Agents Find That Tunes of Misty Scotland Are Well Received on the Streets of Laredo." The article described how the Laredo pipe and drum element developed within the Honor Guard and identified 4 bagpipers and 3 drummers as its core membership. In May 2001, the Laredo pipe and drums performed at a memorial ceremony honoring Border Patrol agents who had died in the line of duty. The ceremony was held in front of INS headquarters in Washington, D.C. For the band, the event carried particular significance. 2 of Laredo agents had been killed in the line of duty that year. By 2002, the Laredo Band had been flown to Washington, D.C. twice to perform during National Police Week ceremonies and to Miami to perform at a naturalization ceremony led by the Attorney General of the United States. In 2002, Jeff Sutherland and I contacted the National Bagpipers about joining their unit as drummers. We were asked to submit an audition video that would be evaluated by a non-Border Patrol musician. We chose not to pursue it, but it planted an idea in my mind. If there was going to be a national band, it should be built, staffed, and governed from within the Border Patrol. After the September 11th attacks, several Laredo Sector bagpipers began preparing to leave the patrol for other agencies. The band was going to lose all but one of its pipers. Ian O'Reilly was the first to depart, leaving Terry McDowell and Jeff Ryan to train Ron Muscate and me on the bagpipes so the band could continue. That transition left Ron Muscate, John Letney, and me as the remaining bagpipers. Until then, I had performed exclusively as a drummer. Learning the pipes out of necessity gave me experience on both sides of the band and a deeper understanding of what it takes to sustain a functioning pipe band. Between roughly 2002 and 2007, neither the Laredo nor the Del Rio sector consistently had enough musicians to field a complete band. Working with James Searle and Brad Kirkpatrick from Del Rio, we sought and received permission from our sector leadership for our 2 bands to provide mutual aid. When one sector lacked musicians, members from the other would be detailed to support ceremonies. This arrangement demonstrated that a combined cross-sector band could function effectively. It also reinforced my belief that the Border Patrol needed a formal national pipes and drums organization. In 2003, a private pipe band associated with Border Patrol personnel from the San Diego area was selected to perform at National Police Week during the first CBP Fallen Officer Memorial. That decision generated strong opinions within the Border Patrol community. Some supported the selection based on musical quality. Others believed that fallen Border Patrol agents should be honored by Border Patrol musicians when that capability existed within the organization. Those differing views highlighted unresolved questions about representation, ownership, and standards, questions that would later influence the creation of a unified national pipes and drums. From March 2006 to March 2007, I was detailed to U.S. Border Patrol headquarters from Laredo. I worked with the National Honor Guard under Assistant Chief Scott Garrett and performed at headquarters level ceremonies. I shared my experience with sector bands, mutual aid, and the problems caused by fragmentation. Chief Garrett agreed that Border Patrol bagpiping and drumming should fall under one national unit. I had planted the seed, and it was taking root. In June 2007, I was promoted and permanently assigned to headquarters. One of the first tasks assigned to me by Chief Garrett was to bring representatives from the National Bagpipers and sector bands to Washington, D.C. for a conference. About 10 agents attended. After a week of discussions held at the Hilton Gardens in Arlington, Virginia, consensus was reached. The sector bands and the National Bagpipers would be disbanded and absorbed into a new organization. The U.S. Border Patrol Pipes and Drums was officially created on June 19, 2007. I was selected as the band's first leader and pipe major. Mike Demick was selected as its second in command and pipe sergeant. James Wheeler was selected as its drum sergeant. 32 agents were identified as Border Patrol pipers and drummers, with 17 of them becoming the first members certified to perform publicly. Following formation, work began on standardizing uniforms and insignia. Mike Demick played a significant role during this period, working with vendors to modify the Millennium and National Bagpiper badges to create the U.S. Border Patrol Pipes and Drums cap badge. He also worked with vendors to create the pipes and drums kilt pin and the cantle. The cantle was the most elaborate piece of metalwork, incorporating the USBP Honor Guard device in the design. It was mounted in the distinctive five-tassel horsehair sporran worn by the Black Watch, 3rd Battalion, Royal Regiment of Scotland. Mike also proposed the creation of a unique pipes and drums coat modeled after the U.S. Army service coat with a World War I-era stand collar. The photo is of me just before presenting it for approval to Chief of the Border Patrol Michael Fisher in April 2010. That coat entered service in 2012. The first performance for the U.S. Border Patrol Pipes and Drums came in February 2008 at the Washington's Birthday Parade in Laredo, Texas. Photographs from that event show a mix of uniforms and instruments, but the performance demonstrated that agents from across the country could assemble and perform effectively as a single band. The following month, in March 2008, the Pipes and Drums made its first widely seen public appearance at the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Chicago. By then, elements of the uniform were coming together more cohesively. Following those early public performances, including 4th of July events in Boston, the Pipes and Drums faced significant internal challenges. Differences of opinion emerged over leadership structure, training standards, uniforms, and the overall direction of the organization. In July 2008, Border Patrol leadership suspended the pipes and drums to assess the program. The suspension lasted through July and August. After review, the band was reconstituted with a law enforcement style command structure using the titles Commander and Deputy Commander. I was appointed as the first commander and James Searle as its first deputy. The reorganization resolved the internal turmoil and allowed the pipes and drums to continue as a national ceremonial unit under a more clearly defined structure. Looking back, the origins of the U.S. Border Patrol pipes and drums reflect a familiar institutional pattern, grassroots tradition driven by individual passion, followed by formal structure. Brad Kirkpatrick, a founding member, currently serves as pipe major and is the longest serving commander in the band's history. Today, the Pipes and Drums continues to honor the fallen, represent the U.S. Border Patrol, and preserve a tradition built by agents who believed the organization deserved its own voice in ceremonial remembrance. This narrative reflects a first-hand historical perspective preserved for educational purposes. HonorFirst.com documents and presents such accounts to promote understanding of the history and traditions of the U.S. Border Patrol, a proud organization within U.S. Customs and Border Protection. HonorFirst.com gratefully acknowledges the Border Patrol Museum and historian Joseph Banco. Their historical materials continue to enrich our shared commitment to preserving the proud legacy of the United States Border Patrol.